Welcome to Lightning Ministries Daily Devotional. Today's topic, where is our focus? Reading from Mark chapter 10, verses 46 to 52. This story is about Bartimaeus and the fact that he was blind. You know, during this time, Jesus was heading towards his final destination, the cross. And on his way, the crowds were immense all around him as he traveled. And when Bartimaeus, a blind man, heard that he was coming, he started shouting out, "Jesus, Son of David." And as he did that, the crowds themselves were telling him to be quiet. But Bartimaeus continued to cry out, even to the point where Jesus said, "Call him." And when he came to him, Jesus asked him, "What do you want me to do for you?" And he says, "I want to be able to see." And Jesus said at that point, he says, "Go, your faith has saved you." And immediately he could see and began to follow Jesus on the road. How amazing that this man on the road could not see. And during the time that he asked, Jesus got him up, gave him his sight, and the man was now following him along with everyone else. You know, realize that for all of us, time is precious. And it's a tremendously valuable gift that you and I can give not only for ourselves, but to others. Now, as you can see behind me, there's a clock. Well, in heaven, there is no clock. There is no time. But Jesus showed in this story how to manage our time well. If Jesus is willing to take and demonstrate his love for mankind and how valuable it is for us to stop for this one individual and do something miraculous. Now, realize that the Lord has much to accomplish in just a few years here during this time in the ministry that he had on earth. But wherever Jesus went, Jesus was sensitive to the needs of the people around him, and he's willing to reach out in love to help not only you and me, but to those during that time. I realize that in this particular study of the Bible, we can see that the time that we have here before Jesus was going to the cross in the story, he was willing to stop for this poor, blind beggar. In this case, this guy was a nobody. He, in the eyes of society, he didn't exist. Why? Because he was blind. He had no function other than to sit and beg. But the Lord cared enough about this one suffering person to take the time to stop and do what he could do to provide a relief. Are you looking for that relief today in some way? You think that Jesus can't relieve you of what you're going through? If Jesus could stop on his way to the cross in order to help someone like this man, how much more is he willing to stop and listen to you when you call out to him in your distress? That's a good question. But Jesus is never too busy to listen to one of his beloved children. That's you and I, brother and sister. I realize that we're all stewards of all that God gives us, including our time. In this particular situation, my thought would be, how can you, like Jesus, reach out in love today and give someone the gift of your availability? You know, we're in such a hurry. I always call it the microwave society. We want it now and right now. We don't want to wait. But what we miss is the opportunity to serve Christ in the body of believers by taking that moment and that time to find out what God is doing in someone's life around you. And not only that, if we look at it from another perspective, we can allow others to see what God is doing in our lives so that they can help us too, whether it be through prayer, through some emotional support, whether it be through some financial support, or just be a simple listener and show that you care. And that's what we miss in our relationships with everyone now. Now, I realize that we don't always have as much time as we would like. We're always looking for that extra time. But realize that God doesn't give us any more than we can handle. And if He can do that, how much more can you do by taking your mind off yourself? Let me rephrase that. By taking the time off yourself and giving your time to someone else in need and being sensitive to that instead of being in such a hurry. I challenge you today to seek God and what He can help you do and deal with today through the privileges of not only His love by going to a cross, but also the opportunity to know that He's willing to stop just for you with billions of people calling out to Him to answer a request, to answer a prayer, to solve a problem, to alleviate some pain and relief. But if we're not willing to take that time to stop long enough to be sensitive to that, we're never going to get to the point of building a relationship and knowing that when we go to God and we pray and ask Him for help, He's going to provide it for us. A lot of people say, well, maybe I'm not that important. That's not true. If Jesus saw that it was important enough to stop for someone He didn't know and heal them of a blindness that they had when no one else, or should I say everyone else in His crowd, was rejecting Him and telling Him to be quiet, how much more is He willing to do for you? A lot more. Thanks for listening today. I hope in some way that God has used me to encourage you to realize that God has time for you. But you have to make time to spend time with Him to be able to get that. Have a blessed day. Thanks for listening.